Hi, I'm Supermoon Tarot, and I want to just say hello, my lovely Libras. It's all about you today. The way this video is going to work is half of it's going to be about the Libra energy and the story behind it, and the other half is going to be about the Libra energy with somebody else in your life and the story behind that going on. Now, this is mostly for sun signs, but if you're moon, rising, all are welcomed here as long as the message resonates. So, let's start off with the energy. I shuffle cards off screen because I take a long time to shuffle. Ooh, that is a wisdom flex. That is like, it's funny. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me pull another card. Yes. I am not surprised. I love that as an additional. This is kind of like food for thought wisdom in addition to this. Oh, I love this. Okay. So the reason why Talisman, where I was trying to get to is, so in life, you hope all your dreams will come true. We're always wishing and wanting something. But the thing is, it's not until you get older, and I say this jokingly all the time, but it is a total fact. Your frontal lobe developing that's like a thing. Like, it's a totally different shift once you got your frontal lobe developed. Trust me. So the whole thing is, when you get older, you start to realize it's less about what I want in the long term. It's the tools I want to have so I can always depend on myself in order to get to where I want. Because sometimes if you're only wishing and dreaming, you can get lost along the way. It's confusing. You can accidentally fall into some traps and stuff like that, old habits, because you're just like, how was I able to attract that to me again? I can't remember. Talisman basically is a compliment to you saying, you have gone through enough. You've figured it out. You're really good at being able to see the traps and the old patterns. And by default, you will always achieve whatever you want to accomplish in the long-term future because you're able to identify them and then therefore able to skip over them, not deal with it, not waste your time, and kind of shoot straight and narrow, whatever the metaphor is. Blue Lace Agate kind of adds to that old school wisdom where it talks about the idea of non-attachment. That non-attachment is kind of an obscure subject for a lot of people if you're like, especially when we just talked about the idea of wishing and wanting. It's so ironic that these two are together. But sometimes it's like, when you stop wanting someone in your life and then the perfect person shows up, it's very much like that kind of concept popping up. But non-attachment not only talks about the idea that you'll be happier for it, you'll attract more good stuff to you by not holding on to the outcome and the expectation, but it talks about the attachment of thinking you have to be a certain way. And it's saying you don't need to be attached to age, you don't need to attach to whatever gender you are, whatever situation you've been through, what you have, what you don't have, and understand that you are good enough right now. It's a totally different way of viewing attachment that I love. But the idea of non-attachment just keeps getting repeated along with the overall, like, it's like, this is the wisdom you've accomplished. Consider adding this to the wisdom, which is like beautiful and wonderful. But I want to keep adding to this great energy going on. I think I'll work with these cards. Interesting. Wow, okay, this is what I love about, I highly recommend if you work in, you do tarot for yourself or whatever, get multiple decks because this is when information that seems like random makes a lot more sense. So, we have a bunch of interesting things going on. It's going to sound a little bit, counteractive or like catch-22 sounding, so excuse me as I try to explain these thoughts, but let's start over here with the Nine of Cups upright. Consider this like the ultimate thing that you want, that you're putting on a pedestal. You want it exactly this perfect way. You don't want to accept it in any other form, and it's this dream thing you want. That's not necessarily bad. We just talked about the idea of dreaming and wanting and wishing. But interestingly, you're being made to make a decision, and that you're redefining your perspective of happiness and how you want to live life. It's funny, it's like the second you gained all this wisdom in order to obtain whatever you want, because you can, like, we talked about seeing all the red flags and being able to dodge them correctly. At the same time, you're like, well, the wisest thing I can do of all is not view life as something to gain or achieve as like a singular item or goal. It's like the whole process itself, the journey itself, is where I'm finding my true bliss. I see you walking away from that concept, which is really interesting, and starting to find joy in the moment. The Fool card definitely embodies similar aspects of the Talisman. I would definitely say it's a little more free-spirited than the Talisman. Talisman's like been through some stuff. But the Fool card is somebody who believes in positivity and positive outcomes, and so that's what happens. They put that out there, and then the universe reflects it back. So that's what enables them to be so free-spirited. It's funny, the Fool card can kind of get a bit of a rap sheet for seeming kind of like, ditzy, but they're kind of having the last laugh. They understand that there is wisdom in being kind of this whimsical and lighthearted. It's like you learn all this information, you become so smart, and then you kind of go back to the beginning, but with all of the lessons you've learned, which I think I have to compliment you, is quite difficult to take on that sort of very childlike persona, but then know all the things you've known and seen. So again, lots of compliments all around, but this is kind of where you're headed and where you should focus on. It's going to find you the most amount of happiness. It's like a beautiful recipe for making everything you want happen, if that makes sense. But here's where it gets really interesting, and this also reflects the idea of like non-attachment, because the Fool card doesn't really like care ultimately where they're going. They just care about the journey, you know what I'm saying? But over here in the Five of Swords, again, it talks about what you've been through, and in a really positive way, you've made peace with a lot of stuff that's happened to you in the past, and that's like beautiful. I want it, like, from me to you, like 10 out of 10, like that's so beautiful. It's really hard to overcome that, and you did that. But interestingly enough, you're going through this huge transformation with the Death card. I mean, so much stuff is going on. We talked about what you've accomplished in the type of, you're like your own inner beacon and compass to life. You're learning about non-attachment, and it's the direction you should head towards. You should keep all this wisdom, but still be childlike. Yeah, we totally understand a lot of stuff's going on here. That makes sense that it's this big metamorphosis. But something's kind of like preventing it. It's like it's in it when you get the Death card, it's like it's imminent. It's it's going to happen anyways. You're going to grow and reborn in this really positive way, spiritually, and the way you view the world and stuff like that. But when it's in reverse, it's like something's holding you up. Often it refers to the past, but interestingly enough, it's like this one last thing getting in the way. And I think this is so interesting, and I don't quite have an answer to this because it goes against kind of like everything else in the spread. The Nine of Wands in reverse is when somebody is kind of trying too hard. They're almost there, they've almost succeeded, and they're trying too hard. I guess that's why the Fool card's being suggested to you, because it's like popping up and trying to say, yes, you are so smart, but maybe don't try to force that ending goal so much. Maybe consider looking at it a different way. Be a little more free-spirited. Maybe you need to rearrange the way you wish, so to speak, and the things that you want to embody in order to overcome this, to allow the whole transformation and metamorphosis to happen. So pretty interesting, but let's get into this energy of this other person in your life. Oh my goodness. Okay. I'm definitely very curious about the story going on here. This is kind of an interesting one. It's almost like there has been the Five of Wands is so interesting. Sometimes it's just straight up fighting, but sometimes it's like, I find it more pops up, especially in this particular deck when I use this deck, when you're having a conversation with somebody, it's both of you can't come to a compromise or a mutual agreement, but you keep like enticing the other person to get back into the conversation. It doesn't always have to be heated, but it's really annoying and doesn't feel like you're going anywhere because you're not. And it's this thing that's overwhelming to experience, so to speak. And then it seems like with the Five of Wands in reverse, it's kind of like everybody's walking away from it. But it doesn't feel like an ending of this could be the relationship, like romantic wise, it could be friendship. It doesn't feel like it's ending. It's just this like we can both agree, and this is the Ace of Swords in reverse, we can both agree that we have no idea what we're saying anymore. So it's kind of a friendly, odd way of exiting such a uncomfortable situation. It's very unique. I'm very curious what's going on with this energy. All right, we're going off with the Tower. Again, I'm being told... Interesting. I'm being told 4, 5, 4? Let me look at this. Oh, now I know why it was going 4, 5. I need clarification. Let me think about where I want it. I want it like here. Okay. What's going on? Oh, okay. Okay, now I know what's going on. So... This is so funny. This goes back to the whole energy we were talking about vibing with you. So 10 of Pentacles, like ultimate goal, this thing that you want. It feels like you're walking away from that. Again, it doesn't mean you can't have everything you want. It's just not your mindset anymore. And what seems to be calling your name more at this present moment is this other person, this connection, this being open emotionally, you kind of wearing your heart on the sleeve. It's just a nice experience. But I started getting confused because with the Hermit card, it could definitely imply them pulling away from you and this big shift and change, but that seems so dramatic for a new relationship, you know what I mean? But it also can represent, and this is where we're going with the latter, it feels like you're drawn to someone who almost seems like they're, I don't want to say they're pulling away from you, but they're very internally analytical. So they're very consumed with their own stuff. It doesn't mean they're not into you, but it almost feels like you're more chasing them because you're so presently aware of them and you want to put all your focus into your experience with interacting with them, and they're putting all their focus into figuring themselves out or this interaction with like a hobby or something like that. Whatever it is, it's this feeling of chasing them. But this is the cool thing. It doesn't feel like you're chasing them and they don't return your feelings. It's almost like they're, wow, this is really cool. They're kind of the person that's guiding you out of, remember we talked about how it's not the purpose for you anymore to focus on the end goal, but focus on the journey itself. It's like they're pulling you away. You're inspired to be with them in order to move in this direction. Spirit is telling me for a large majority of you, this is like a friend type of thing as well. So I'm just putting that out there. But the Tower card sometimes is very worrying, sometimes it's not. It's definitely not always. I often get the Tower card in very positive circumstances, but it talks about this dramatic change happening in your life. So it implies this severity and like serious, this huge shift in your life because you're interacting with this other person. And when you eventually stop chasing them and you catch up to them and you're together, it's like they're the real deal, but they're not just the real deal and like this is like a big relationship for the two of you. It's like they rearrange your DNA, you know, just by being in their existence. It's huge. We talked about that death card, that rebirth, metamorphosis you're going through. They're definitely the culprit of it, which is really interesting. And we get this positive confirmation over here with the Six of Wands being like, it might feel a little bit like a, you know, you're chasing them. What am I doing? What's going on? Like a journey, so to speak, to get to them. But don't worry, you're going to have victory in the end. It's going to be great. They're going to fully recognize you, be fully into you, and just generally really like the way you are. So don't feel you need to reflect their more kind of quiet, internal, self-analytical nature. Be yourself. They are totally magnetized by that. They're just a little distracted unintentionally right now. They don't mean to be. It's just the situation. It will change though for the better, and for the better indeed, with not only having this significant person in your life, but also being able to change internally in yourself in a really huge way that you're viewing the world and the way you want to approach it and approach manifesting. So pretty beautiful. Did I mention that? Because I think it's pretty beautiful. If you liked this video, please consider giving it a like, comment, and subscribe. It helps out like you would not believe. Have a lovely day. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye!